We are live. How's it going, everybody? It's your boy Wardy, and as you can see, we're back at it discussing all things New York Metropolitans, as today we'll be getting into the latest reporting, which has the New York Mets connected to both Dylan Cease, Shota Imanaga, and plenty others. Where does David Stearns currently stand in his pursuit for starting pitching this offseason? And so much more is what we're about to get into, and given the magnitude that it is a Dylan Cease caliber player, and that the Mets are currently still active in the Shota Imanaga market, warranted me wanting to do a live show today versus doing my individual videos. This is the first live show in pretty much at least a month since we did a similar format where instead of me doing my typical pre-recorded video breaking down these players, I want to see your guys' interactions in the live show, and of course for people in the comments on replay. The last time we did this format was regarding two players in Eduardo Rodriguez and Michael A. Taylor. The Mets did not land either of them. However, it was a fun discussion then, and now we're going to get into a fun discussion here as Joel Sherman has broken the latest that yes, the Mets are active in the trade market for Dylan Cease, along with the New York Yankees, the Baltimore Orioles, potentially the Atlanta Braves. Maybe not so much the Braves now, of course, after landing Sale and signing him to that 2-year extension. But we'll get into everything you need to know about Dylan Cease. What is the likelihood, unlikelihood of the Mets landing him? Same can apply with Shota Imanaga. And overall, what is Stearns trying to do this offseason? Does he have any tricks up his sleeve to work with in the trade market? We'll get into all that and then some. But before I go any further, I want to thank everyone so much for being here. The Mets are not interested in neither. This is all clickbait BS. Joel, I love how ill-informed you are, my friend. You know, the stuff that cracks me up the most is when all you need to do is do simple research, especially when every single video and stream I do references the articles and the reporting from factual reporting of people that I get into. But hey, if you want to call it BS, that's perfectly fine. Just know that you're in the wrong, and that's, again, not a shocker to me given your responses here right now. But again, for those that are ill-informed, that are unaware, all you got to do, ready? Get ready for this. You go on the New York Post, okay? You go to Joel Sherman's latest article. What do we have here? Mets join Yankees and Dylan Cease trade sweepstakes. Let's get into it. Let's break it down right now, my friends. Again, happy to have you guys in here. Mets are interested in Mickey Mantle. That sounds like something you say. Wardy, what's up, Doug? How you doing, you beauty? Happy to have you guys all in here watching live on a replay. Make sure to smash that like and subscribe button for your boy. Greatly appreciate Dominic, great member. Happy to have you in here. I'm doing fantastic. Good start to the day. I love talking shop. Honestly, one of the few things I enjoy a lot when I start my day is to start my day by doing some form of content. So I was happy to see these things all roll out not far after, of course, I'm waking up, because I'm always waking up late nowadays. But let's get into it, okay? So, and I quote from Joel Sherman today is the following: the Mets are among teams that continue to check in on White Sox starter Dylan Cease, who is one of the most likely players to still be traded this offseason. Cease is among the group of stars the Mets are considering to fill out the rotation. Among others that we know of to this point are Southpaws Shamania, Hyun-Jin Ryu, and also Brandon Woodruff and Mike Clevenger, which was not mentioned in this article, but was mentioned by SNY a couple days ago, which I referenced in my most recent video on the channel. Not live stream video. Make sure to check that out if you guys haven't already. Did thorough breakdowns on each of those 4 pitchers. But again, those are strictly more so back-end options with some upside to be potentially middle of the rotation at absolute best for them. Woodruff is a different discussion because he's not pitching this year, but he will be pitching hopefully in 2025 and in a dominant fashion should the Mets sign him on a multi-year deal. And they have remained in contact with Shota Imanaga. Now, a couple things I want to share about both Imanaga and then Cease is what we're going to do the first thorough breakdown of. Imanaga I'll expand on after. In between, we will do our ad read on the channel, which I know you guys either love or hate. Either way, they're great supporters of the channel. Shout out to my great friends at BetUS for being a great sponsor here. But Shota Imanaga, I'd like to clear the air a bit. We've heard contradicting reporting. I know, comes as a surprise to absolutely nobody. We have once again heard contradicting reporting regarding players the Mets are targeting. What do I mean by this? 48 hours ago or so, Ken Rosenthal came out with a piece that pretty much said that the Mets are not active in the Shota Imanaga front. Like, you can kiss that sayonara goodbye. It's not happening. Like, they're not involved. Since then, yesterday, we heard from Mark Fine saying that the Mets were one of at least 5 teams, if not more, in the market for Shota Imanaga. It has been reaffirmed here again from Joel Sherman. And now we hear from Jim Bowen today that the 4 finalists for Shota Imanaga at this current time, according to his sources, do not include the New York Mets. So, again, I'm not getting my hopes up too much on Shota. He's someone that I would certainly be in favor of, and I made that abundantly clear on the channel. However, I can see if the Mets have a reluctance to go, say, north of 5 years, $100+ million for a mid to back end rotation piece for them if they do not view him to profile better than that. Again, I think he's a very talented pitcher. I would love to see him in cleans. It seems like the Mets are active in his front, but this is a frustrating thing where we have this contradictory reporting. Okay, if the Mets are active, to what degree? degree. We don't really know, and a lot of the times you don't know until after the fact. You know, we've been grateful to hear little sprinkles of rumblings here and there through SNY at times, giving us a heads up saying, yes, the Mets are interested in this player, but there isn't a heavy interest. They've only, dabbled around. They haven't even went past a phone call or two. I'm not sure where things stand with Imanaga right now. I'm just relaying all the reporting, how they're contradictive, how some people are saying the Mets are involved, some people are saying that they aren't. All I know is that the Mets need to add starting pitching desperately this offseason before we get on to spring training, and Shota Imanaga most certainly would be a fit for this club. Just a matter of will the Mets actually land him or not? That is yet to be seen. Dave, thank you so much for $5 donation. Dave, I am doing that today, my friend. Thank you so much for the donation. I love the fact that you asked that because today is the day. Did I pick up? I will very soon. Appreciate that. Wait till 2025. This is all BS. That's fine, Joel. You stay doing you and I'll stay doing me, my friend. I appreciate that donation. No, let's get some hype and love in the chat for my man, Dave Kaplitz. Always greatly appreciate his support and endless generosity. Always means the world to me. But that's the latest with Shota Imanaga, and I'll expand more on his game. But I really want to take a couple minutes now to highlight what you need to know about the man in the highlight video right now, and that is none other than Chicago White Sox ace and Dylan Cease. And I might be using that term ace loosely because last year, yes, this year had his struggles post-trade deadline, but there's so many aspects to Dylan Cease's game that I've always admired. I made it abundantly clear. I had him in my top 5 Mets pitching targets or trade targets video going back like 2 months ago or close to 2 months ago, and there was valid reasoning for it because Dylan Cease is an absolute dog. Do not get it twisted. The guy still has 2 years left of control in his contract. He's 27 years of age, a 4.58 ERA this past season with a 4 expected ERA, a 4.1 SI ERA. You know, the expected numbers certainly favor him. What he can control certainly favors him. Again, the first half versus the second half of 2023 Dylan Cease were drastically different type pitchers. But what I do know is that Dylan Cease is a big strikeout guy, and he has a beautiful arsenal of pitches. And I know he's seen a downtick in his horizontal movement on his slider. I know that the velo has fluctuated with the fastball as well. But Dylan Cease at this age and with the potential, you cannot go wrong by trying to acquire him. It really comes down to, can you get him at a price where it makes sense for both sides? And that's the biggest thing here with Dylan Cease. And before we get into more on his numbers, what I like and maybe what I don't like about him, this is a hot trade market. We thought Dylan Cease was going to be an Atlanta Brave a couple months ago, right? Shout out to you, Jim at Ballcap Sports. If you know, you know. And it ended up being Chris Sale. That was their ultimate trade option. We have heard 48 hours ago, at least, according to SNY's Andy Martino, that the Mets are very, and I mean very active in the trade market for starting pitching. What does this tell me? Even if the Mets do not land Dylan Cease, because again, you have suitors with far more superior farms with probably what they can give in the Baltimore Orioles. You know, the Yankees, not so much. I honestly like the Mets' chances going toe-to-toe with the Yanks in a trade for the Cease after what they parted with already for Juan Soto, but what is the willingness from these clubs? How much prospect capital, how much young talent are they willing to give? What exactly are the White Sox looking for? But what I know is that even if the Mets do not land Dylan Cease, it seems like it's not going to be for a lack of effort by the Mets and David Stearns here. David seems like he really wants to try to pull off a trade for a guy that has a couple years of control versus just opting for a Sean Manaea, Hyun-Jin Ryu, Mike Clevenger, a Brandon Woodruff. Not to say the Mets won't sign either of those players, and not to say they wouldn't be bad moves, but the point here again is we know how top-heavy this free agent market is. We know there's a lot to be desired when evaluating starting pitching, and the trade market, while there isn't too much there, you have to get creative, and this is exactly what someone like David Stearns has been known for throughout his career. It's not just creativity in the free agent market while balling on a budget, it's creativity via trade, which we have seen him perform and pull off some fantastic trades. One that'll always highlight to me is the Willy Adames deal that they did a couple years ago as well from the Tampa Bay Rays. That was a really nice trade for them at the time, and that still holds true to this day. But now let's get into a bit more on Dylan Cease and what is the appeal here. Mets Nation, my man LA, thank you so much for a donation. What's up, Tyler? I want Dylan Cease. I want Dylan Cease too. Again, I'm not going to get my hopes up too high regarding these rumors because at the end of the day, wanting a player and getting a player are two different things. And I do not want to also mislead fans too that, you know, as much as I'm drooling over the idea of landing a Dylan Cease, I do not want you guys to perceive this as, oh my God, it's a slam dunk to happen, because it's the farthest thing from the truth. We just know the Mets are very active in this market right now. I love the fact that they're active in this market. This is a market where I did not think the Mets will be that active in, mainly because of the other suitors trying to pursue him. And that ultimately could be the reason why the Mets do not land someone like Dylan Cease, because of how expensive he may be via trade. However, the White Sox made a piss-poor decision back at the MLB trade deadline by not trading away Dylan Cease when his trade value was at an absolute high, with 2.5 years of team control at the time, was one of the best pitchers in the AL, and then he falls off a cliff post-trade deadline, and they only have themselves to blame. The Orioles at the time gave an offer that they absolutely should have accepted and are probably, kicking their teeth in since then because of how stupid could they be to not accept it, but here we are. So the landscape has certainly changed for Dylan Cease. As we look at his 2023 percentiles through Baseball Savant, his fastball, again, one of the better ones in baseball, sits around an average of 96 miles per hour on the heater. He's in the 77th percentile in fastball velo this past season. Expected ERA, 51st percentile. Expected batting average, 54 percentile. So just above league average, but we'll get into his 2022 numbers. That was a big, almost you could argue an anomaly of a year, but we'll get into that because it's important. Average exit velocity, 23 percentile. Again, he gives up solid average exit velo. Chase percentage, 41 percentile, just below average. Whiff percentage, again, known for the strikeout stuff, is Dylan Cease, who had 214 Ks this past season with Southside. 84th percentile whip percentage. K percentage, 77 percentile. Chase percentage, 41 percentile. I think I said that already. Walk percentage, 25 percentile. Needs to get that walk rate down, but again, I'm sure that's something that both Sherman and himself can work with. Barrel percentage, 78 percentile. Hard hit rate, ground ball percentage, extension, all not great. But as we look at not only the fastball, has the slide piece sitting around mid 80s, the curveball, which has been a recipe for success for him, one right, and the changeup. And as we look at these pitches too, when evaluating 2023 as a whole, what am I seeing here? The curveball, which I know Cease has had great success in the past with, did not have nearly the amount of success that you would expect this past season. Only 23 strikeouts in the curve, basically a 300 average he gave up. The slug isn't pretty. His best pitch was his slider this past season, even though they lost some horizontal movement. The changeup, while it was barely used, was effective when used. The four-seam fastball got hit around a decent amount. And as we look at his 2022 numbers, I mean, they're night and day. And this is what I mean. As great of a season as Dylan Cease had in 2022, it's also fair to argue that that was more so of an anomaly of a season. I do not expect Dylan Cease to consistently put up the numbers with a 2.2 ERA when he's a career north of 4 ERA pitcher. I think he just had everything going right in 2022, and at his absolute best, we could get that similar pitcher, but probably not on a consistent year-by-year basis. The only thing that I will say that the Mets, that Cease has in his favor here is certainly age. He's only 27, and he had a phenomenal 2022 campaign. I mean, guys, actually, you guys can look it up yourself, but all the Baseball Savant numbers, guys, are literally pretty much in the 80 to 90 to even 100 percentiles. Pitching run value in 2022, 99 percentile. Fastball run value, 81st percentile. Breaking run value, 100 percentile. Expected ERA, expected batting average, fastball velo, all these numbers, fantastic. The only things he still struggled with in 2022 was his walk rate was not good, ground ball percentage, and extension. But when we look at his pitches as well, I actually want to go back here. Bear with me, everybody, as everyone's first chiming in, as we're breaking down the latest in Mets land, as the New York Metropolitans are in the market for some really good pitchers, and Dylan Cease, Shota Imanaga, among others, is what we're currently breaking down. Make sure you smash that like and subscribe button for your boy. Greatly appreciate it. I'm going to go into the 2022 season here and look at his numbers. Okay, so this is what I mean. When looking at the 2022 numbers with the curveball in particular, definitely had a higher success rate, a 250 average he gave up. The slug was over 150 points down from the 2023. Four-seam fastball, solid, only gave up a 240 average. The slide piece, which was his best pitch in 2023, was most certainly his best pitch in 2022. He threw the slider more than any other pitch, a whopping 128 batting average, a 209 slug. When that slider is right and at its best, is one of the best slide pieces in all of Major League Baseball. So Dylan Cease, we've seen the pros and the cons from where he was in 2022, the kind of coming down, falling from grace a bit in 2023. But there are certainly aspects to his game that I absolutely would be in favor of should the Mets go out of their way to acquire him. But now we're left with a question. What does it take to land someone like Dylan Cease? And what are the White Sox looking for in particular? It's a great question. I don't think the White Sox are going to have interest in another kind of standalone DH like a Mark Vientos. So the Mets, maybe he could be thrown in, but I'm just saying, I don't know how accurate something like that would be. The Mets would really have to get creative. They would have to trade away some of their farm. They would have to trade away some of their more top prospects. So I guess my question to everyone in the live show is, if you're David Stearns and the Mets here, and you actually have a solid shot at landing Dylan Cease, so let's just put that hypothetical in there, because we do not know at this point in time how serious the Mets are involved in the Cease market. We just know that they've been heavily active there for a bit now, versus other clubs. Like, where do the Mets stand? Because we know they're certainly not a favorite right now. It doesn't come as a surprise to anyone in the trade market, but they do have assets that they're willing to part with if it makes sense for both sides. David Stearns made something abundantly clear this offseason. If you're going to trade away prospects, you need to make sure you're getting equal return on team control. Dylan Cease, while he's not a rental, only has 2 more years of control on his contract. So how much does that mean for the Mets and their vision of 2025 and beyond? Do they like the idea of bringing in Cease and trying to extend him right away? I would not be against that whatsoever. But when giving up assets, my question to you, the fellow fans watching live on a replay, is what prospects do you think it may take to land someone of Cease's caliber? I know the responses are going to vary greatly in the chat, but I'm really curious to see what you guys have to say regarding Dylan Cease and his market. Dave, thank you so much for the $5 donation. Dave says, can Mets get both Cease and Eloy? I would not get my hopes up there, as amazing as that would be, and as much. Let me tell you right now, if David Stearns pulled off a trade to land both Eloy Jimenez and Dylan Cease, and didn't give up like the entire farm, I would be ecstatic. Absolutely ecstatic. Eloy Jimenez, another bat that I absolutely love. The guy struggles to stay on the field, unfortunately, but he's a standalone DH, similar to Jorge Soler. Put him in the corner if you want absolute shit defense. But if you want a standalone DH that has plenty power, young, controllable contract, that is, in fact, Eloy Jimenez. But I'm not going to get my hopes up at this rate right now, because, again, look at how lackluster the offseason has been so far versus depth moves when we have yet to really have those quality moves. And it looks like we're not really going to have much of those quality moves. It seems like that this is the Mets, hopefully final chances and best chances to try to land someone of a higher ceiling than just a Shamania Hyun-Jin Ryu. I'd like to make clear, I'm not opposed to Shamania as a back-end option, a guy that can come out of the pen too, but do I really want Shamania kind of on paper to be the Mets number 3, number 4 next season? No, I don't want that to be the case. Of course not. Whether that's going to be the case or not, we have yet to see. But ideal world, trade for Dylan Cease and still sign a Shamania. That would be amazing. But again, that's wishful thinking, because every time that I think something's amazing, it ends up not happening, which means I need to always settle my expectations when evaluating the club, in all seriousness. But let's see what you guys have in store regarding what the Mets may or may not give up here in a potential Dylan Cease trade. This show's probably going to go on for tops a half hour or so. It's not going to be as long-winded as we usually do the breaking live streams like we did with Harrison Bader signing with, the Mets yesterday. Make sure to check out that live show if you haven't already. Greatly appreciate it. Let's see. Michael Marino just tweets this, and I don't blame him for saying this. Michael Marino, who, again, good friend of mine, great supporter of the channel, and independent MLB reporter, says, my spidey senses are tingling with the Mets and Cease. I don't see the fit personally. It doesn't pass the small test. It's possible I'm proven wrong, but a Boris Rep 1-year rental during a transitionary year seems like it wouldn't make sense. Reeks of leverage season. Well, Dylan Cease isn't a 1-year rental, so I think Michael is mistaken on that front. I don't think Michael understands that he has 2 years left of control. Yeah, he doesn't understand. That's okay. That's just an error by Michael. I 100% agree. I do not foresee the Mets trading for any starter that is a rental. Corbin Burns is not happening. Shane Bieber is not happening. Anyone with 2, 3, 4, 5 years of control, however, I could see happening. If Cease is 28, that's an error on my end then. He must have just turned 28 from the last time I did the graphic. That's my bad. I did this graphic like 2 months ago for Cease when I did my trade targets video, so I'd imagine that things have changed since then. Probably his birthday, right? But, okay. That's all I want to see regarding Cease at the time. Let's see what you guys have here in the chat right now. Ryu was okay with the Jays. Comeback for Tommy John looked fine. While that's true, I just have sincere concern about his durability at his age, and also knowing that he has no velo whatsoever. Like, bringing in Hyun-Jin Ryu is basically a better version of Rich Hill, where the upside could potentially get you around a 3.5 ERA, but the downside is his potential lack of staying healthy, also getting barreled very hard when he just, again, is a soft thrower. There are concerns there. Hyun-Jin Ryu is personally one of my least favorite players currently in the free agent market for starting pitching. Don't hate the guy or anything like that. Turned 28 December 28th. There you go. Okay, so that's the reason for the error. So happy belated birthday to you, hopefully future New York Met and Dylan Cease. But that's what we know here to this point about Dylan Cease. I like the little packages you guys have come up in the chat. Juan says, I wonder if the Mets could get Cease and a decent bat from the White Sox in return for one of our top 15 prospects. It's going to cost far more than just a top 15 prospect if you want both Cease and a decent bat. Dylan Cease is not going to come cheap, guys. If Dylan Cease was going to come cheap, the market wouldn't be what it is for him right now. Like, the fact that you have top contending teams pursuing Dylan Cease is the issue, because these are win-now clubs that have a further willingness to part ways with the farm with whatever they have left. And if you're the Baltimore Orioles that tried so hard to land him at the trade deadline, has a lot changed since then? I don't think so. I just think they want him at their price versus what the White Sox price was at the deadline, which is, again, justifiably so. But the Mets do have assets to part with should they wish. And he is not a rental, which is, again, a further reasoning as to why I think someone like Dylan Cease is so appealing. I'll be watching golf. You have fun doing that, Randy. That makes one of us. True, with the $2 donation, says, I want Luis Robert. With Cease, I'll give up everyone, as would I. I think we all would agree we'd give up most for that package, but it unfortunately isn't happening. Ryu's a stud, especially on a one-year deal. The issue, again, is the Mets need guys that can eat innings. Ryu has not proven that he can eat innings consistently over the past couple years, in part, of course, because of his injury, but also his age. If you also look through his savant numbers, if you look at how his stuff projects right now, it's not nearly as strong as what it used to be. So, again, I don't hate Ryu. If the Mets sign Ryu, I'm going to do all I can to try to get on the wavelength of, being like, okay, I can see the upside here, because I do, but I also see the downside. I don't think there's any current starting pitching free agent out there, aside from Brandon Woodruff, as a little risk, high reward upside type pickup where you can say, hey, this is like a slam dunk for the Mets or any team. It isn't. All these guys have flaws in different aspects. And like I said, just my personal opinion from my evaluation of Ryu, I have a level of concern with, and it comes down to more so how durable, how reliable can he be for the Mets at this point in his career. If he goes out and pitches 150 plus innings, under a 4-year array, then okay, then we got something there. But we have yet to see that. And I don't know if that's going to be with the Mets or if that's going to be with a different team. So we too will see. Wu and Miller are nice, but Seattle's so frustrating. They got to figure out what they're doing with Castillo. Hearing things about Luis Castillo, not at all, Chris. The Mets, I do not foresee the Mets trading for Luis Castillo as much as I would love him. If we see things start to pick up and change, then we will certainly do a thorough breakdown on Luis Castillo right now. But there's been nothing to this point regarding him, and I do not foresee that to be the case at this point in time. Cecil Rivera, again, I think we're getting our hopes up here. I think as soon as I mention White Sox, you guys are all salivating at the mouth for more, but that unfortunately just might not be the reality we live in. But guys, I want to talk not only about Dylan Cease, but I want to get into a little bit more about Shota Imanaga and what I like about him. But before I do, we have to hear from today's video sponsor. So let's do exactly that.
BetUS, America's favorite sports book, where you can bet on everything anytime. Sportsbook, casino, horse racing, live betting, and more. We have the best bonuses in the industry. That's right, get a 125% sign-up bonus. And to celebrate our 30-year anniversary, we are giving up to 30 risk-free bets, a truck, Super Bowl tickets, and more. Don't miss out. Play smart. Join now. BetUS, where the game begins.
And again, once more, shout out BetUS for being a great sponsor on the channel. You can check them out today. They are safe, secure, and reliable. If you want to get in on the action for NFL playoffs right around the corner, NBA season, NHL, or whatever your heart desires, make sure to check out BetUS today by clicking the link in the description. That way you too get a 125% boost with your first deposit. So if you deposit 100, you automatically get 225 to work with. As you see here are the games currently, the slates for the NFL matchups coming up this weekend. I'm curious to know what your guys' thoughts are. I'm a Steelers fan, so I'm absolutely hammering the underdog in that one and just seeing where that plays. Of course, I'm going to probably get my heart broken. Sounds like a day that ends in Y, but if you like to get in on the action for all your sports betting needs and then some, where we'll be doing unique WardyNYM parlays throughout the 2024 Mets regular season, check out BetUS today. And again, shout out to them for being a great sponsor on the channel. That Steelers-Ravens game certainly has me concerned. Me running the show intro again sounds like a day that ends in Y. The day that I make sure to go back into the slide and not show my damn show intro again will be a happy day for me. It continues to not be the case. Let's see here. Steelers fan, interesting. I know. Yes. A little brief on that for those that are curious. My father's from Queens. I'm originally from Long Island. My dad, however, grew up a Mets fan, a Rangers fan, and a Steelers fan. Because back in the day when he was a kid, the Jets and the Giants were horrendous. There were two really good teams at the time, and he was like, you know, if I'm going to hop on the bandwagon as a kid, I can't hop on the Cowboys bandwagon. He just wouldn't do it. So he's like, I'm going to go root for the Steelers. They went on to win multiple championships in the 70s, hence birth my fandom once I officially came out here, which is why I'm a Steelers fan to this day. And they have had such a frustrating and typical Steelers fashion season where they're going to be above 500, but they're probably not going to make playoffs because we have to deal with an MVP caliber player right in our face and Lamar Jackson for the final game this season. Just fantastic. Dodgers are out on Imanaga. I'm not surprised with that. Dodgers, I don't think the Dodgers are going to add anything more of significance to their rotation this offseason. I think they are pretty much rounded out in that area. I mean, look, they literally have Yamamoto, Bueller, and Glass now as their 1, 2, 3. That's a damn good three-headed monster that they have there right now. But let's talk a bit now about Shota Imanaga before we wrap up the show. Like I said, I really want to put a heavy emphasis on the show today regarding Dylan Cease. More Dylan Cease and less Imanaga, mainly because of the fact that we've talked about Imanaga at great length on the channel already. And I don't, want to be too long-winded with someone like him when you guys know plenty about him and his game to this point. However, Shota Imanaga, and is, again, the only thing that's changed about Shota since the last time that, not since the last time we spoke on him, but just the past couple times, because I did this graphic so long ago with his numbers. He has a 2.8 ERA, and I think he has, he pitched in 1 or 2 more starts since this stat line. So around a 2.8 ERA, not much of a drastic difference whatsoever. So that's why I haven't really changed things at this point. But let me edit this graphic real quick so that way you guys can see more of the numbers right there. Let's do exactly that. Bear with me 1 second. We'll put things right there. So Shota Imanaga, why have I been a fan of Shota Imanaga this whole time? And this goes in hand with, my infatuation with MPB pitchers. Kodai Senga really opened up the floodgates for me as a fan with these Japanese pitchers coming over, with the success rate that they can have at a pretty affordable cost. I mean, Kodai Senga at 5 years, $75 million with the opt-out, you can say that's a huge bargain for the Mets already. He was a Cy Young caliber pitcher in his rookie year with the Mets. Now, Shota Imanaga doesn't have as high of a ceiling as Kodai Senga, and he doesn't, I don't think his stuff is as good, but his stuff is so unique. That's the emphasis here. He's unique. There are very little pitchers out there that have the arm slots and the type of arsenal that someone like Shota Imanaga has, which is very appealing about him. He has the off-speed stuff. He has a late rising fastball that sits in the low 90s. So even though he's sitting 91, 92, you're going to be caught off guard swinging through that thing all the time, especially lefty on lefty, because of how deceptive it becomes once it leaves the mound. There are different aspects to his pitch shapes, which certainly make him a very appealing option. And through research which I've done, you could really tell that Imanaga is a fascinating option this free agency, who has up until January 11th to sign with a club. As I said, there has been contradicting reports. There has been Ken Rosenthal saying that the Mets, don't get your hope like that. They're not involved. You see Andy Martino saying that it's possible, but not, plausible, something along those lines regarding Shota Imanaga. Then you hear from Mark Feinsand yesterday, Joel Sherman today, that the Mets are still active in the Imanaga front. As I've said before, and I'll say it again, I'm not getting my hopes up on Imanaga because the Mets need to prove to us that they're willing to sign a free agent starting pitcher on a north of a $400+ million deal. They're not showing that for mid to back end rotation options. They were for ace caliber in Yamamoto, but he was an anomaly. So it's a different discussion now. But given the fact that there are still these reports going back and forth and Imanaga is still out there, we're going to take a couple minutes to break down a little bit about him and what I like about him. Because him slotting in not only would be an easy transition or smoother than, say, other clubs that don't have a fellow MPB player, because that's the appeal with someone like Kodai Senga. If Shota Imanaga comes in, he's going to be, right away, he's going to get the luxury of having a fellow MPB pitcher who knows what it takes to win at the MLB level, who had a great success rate in his first year in the bigs, can show him around not only Queens and New York, but also can really help him build his comfortability in the organization, what it means to be a major league pitcher. We're not talking about just the ball, which is different. The ball's a little softer in the MPB, has a little bit of a different feel than at the MLB level. The MLB baseballs are very inconsistent too with their feel, which is why they need a universal substance usually to at least work with, aside from the mud that they put on that comes from like that Delaware River that they do every year. If you know, you know. But Imanaga is someone where you could slot him in right now as the Mets number 3 or number 4, and you're feeling far more comfortable, and there's an excitement level that is certainly higher than what is else currently available in the free agent market outside of Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery. Those are truly more back-end six-man options in a lot of them. And for the case here in Shota Imanaga, while, yes, the Mets may view him as like, okay, this is a nice talent, but is he worth really the half-decade-long contract at $100+ million when that'll then prohibit us from being able to fill that rotation role with someone else next offseason? And we like what we have in Sherman as a potential fit. We like the sweeper that he's building. We like the splitty that he's working with. We see some similarities there. Maybe we're going for a high upside short-term fit versus committing a half decade for a Shota Imanaga where there is more uncertainty. I understand the pros and the cons of that type of conversation and evaluation completely. Just my point of view as a fan, I've liked Shota Imanaga. I'm going to continue to like Shota Imanaga, and I do hope the Mets land him, but I'm not expecting them to at this current juncture. So right now, it appears the Mets' likelihood of signing guys, if they sign a pitcher, are still looking more so in those back-end options, like a Sherman, like a Hyunjin Ryu, like a Mike Clevenger, like a Brennan Woodruff, just to name a few there, versus say a Shota Imanaga, a Jordan Montgomery, a Blake Snell, but nothing is certain yet. And this free agent market could get very wild very fast once the floodgates start to open a bit more. We know it's top heavy, we're aware of that, but there's still a lot of players out there that need to sign with clubs, not only for pitching, but for DH, for outfield, for infield, for all these positions, and of course bullpen, where the Mets certainly need to address that. We'll be discussing more shortly in the coming days, probably early next week is when we'll do a more thorough breakdown on reliever options, unless we find out the Mets have signed a reliever prior, which of course we'll do a breaking news live show or video of when is deemed best fit. But my biggest takeaways from all this right now is that the Mets are very active in the trade market. I'm really curious to see, especially if they do not land Dylan Cease, what other pivot options they may have up their sleeve or what they're currently doing that we're not aware of available in the trade market. Luis Castillo, I don't see happening for multiple reasons. However, I would not be opposed to Luis Castillo in this rotation whatsoever. I think it would be so foolish of the Mariners to part ways with him so soon as well. The guy's only been under contract with them for like, what, a year and a half? The Mariners piss me off with how they operate because they're an organization that churns out nice talent every single year, but they do not spend enough to get them over the hump. If they spend in the rotation, they don't add enough in different areas. If they add enough in different areas, they don't add enough in the rotation. It's always a seesaw, a back and forth. Something us Mets fans went through a lot as well, which is unfortunate. Let's see, Cecil Robert for Parada Ramirez, Vientos, Tidwell, Stuart Clifford. That's a fair deal. That's a lot of prospect return, my friend, and it still probably isn't enough. And the reason why it's not enough is because you don't even have the Mets' top prospects in there with Robert. If you're trading for Luis Robert, you can kiss Drew Gilbert gone. You can absolutely kiss. Luis Robert is so talented that I know the Mets wouldn't want to do it, but the first thing the White Sox would do is say, hey, give us Francisco Alvarez. That's the first thing they would do. They need a future backstop. He would fit them perfectly. I do not want to see that happening. But again, that trade is not going to happen, Dave. Mainly because that is too much prospect capital in a short period of time when the Mets don't have enough comfortability in their farm to give up assets to that degree. For Dylan Cease, we don't even know if they have the proper assets for, let alone you want to throw in one of the best young talents in all baseball who's control balls all hell. I don't see it at all. I'd have to be proven otherwise. That's just where I currently stand on that front. I appreciate the donation and the proposal, though. Michael Lorenzen, I don't hate, but Lorenzen, again, is a six-man type, a guy that can be a starter and reliever. That's where I would prefer him. I don't like how he projects too well. Yeah. Leaves a bit to be desired. My favorite thing about Michael Lorenzen is that I'm pretty sure, is the only starting pitcher in baseball that wears Vans cleats. Yes, you heard that correctly. We're talking like old-school Vans that he has freaking cleats at the bottom of. My boy's flat-footed as you know what. He likes his cleats like Vans, and that's okay. Same way that people have, their Jordan 1s on with their cleats, which is pretty sick too. Or even, what is it? The Jordan, was it the 12s? What? I'm trying to think. What are the Jays that Dellin Betances famously wore with the Yanks? And then when he was pitching in the World Baseball Classic, I'm blanking. But he always wore, it's not the 11s. I want to say it's the 12s. I could be wrong. I know exactly what they look like too, but I'm blanking. Guys, before we get out of here, there's a final remark I want to share, and I meant to share this earlier in the show. I'm well aware that Trevor Bauer was just on WFAN. I'm also well aware that Trevor Bauer was also on Fox News the day prior. And I will say this, I commend Trevor for finally doing what he should have done a long time ago, which was kind of, right his wrongs. He admitted to his childishness, his immaturity, which went directly in hand with his reactions on social media when people have accused him or called him out of things. I commend him for all of that. And what I've said from the beginning, I do not personally have an ill will with Trevor Bauer. I do not agree with what he did, even if he comes out all cleared. Because just even if it was consensual, I mean, you can make arguments all you want that those things aren't okay. Regardless of this, regardless of everything regarding Bauer to this point, the Mets are not going to sign him. And that's something I can't emphasize enough. If the New York Metropolitans sign him, I will come out here and apologize to literally everyone. But I'm so confident that it's not going to happen for more reasons than one that go beyond what he has been accused of. This goes again back to what happened when the Mets first tried pursuing him, in which there was a divide from Sandy Alderson and Steve Cohen versus the Mets acting GM at the time, Zach Scott. I just do not see it for more reasons than one. There's a reason why Bauer is getting very little calls from anyone. Things may change now given his little media tour lately, but that's where I will leave things regarding Trevor Bauer. I can understand if fans like the idea of bringing him in. He's a very talented pitcher, and I can understand that. I hear you. But regardless of what your personal feelings of Trevor Bauer are, good, bad, and different, I'm just here to relay the message. Do not get your hopes up, because there's 1,000 reasons and then some as to why he's not going to be a New York Met this season, as to why he may very well not even be in the major leagues to begin the season. It's possible, but if it happens, I'm going to be a betting man and say it will not be the New York Metropolitans, and you have the New York market to blame in part because of it. Bauer with this media, there's just too many reasons as to why it's not going to happen. And that's the thing. And for the people that are inevitably going to be like, oh, you hate Trevor Bauer, all this shit. No, I don't. It has nothing to do with political stances. It has nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with the reality and how organizations run. And the only reason why Trevor Bauer is doing this whole media tour now is because no one's even giving him the light of day. He is trying to backtrack the best he can to right his wrongs. He knows he can't fix his past, but he can change his future. Will he stay genuine with that? I hope for his sake he certainly can. Again, he does great with his content making as not only a baseball fan, but as a content creator. I respect it. I appreciate it. But I just can't emphasize enough. He's not going to come here. So I'm not going to waste my breath discussing him further beyond the one video I did to just clear the air, because people always ask me about him, until we find out saying, hey, the Mets are actually interested in Trevor Bauer. Until that happens, I'm not even going to give the light of day to it for obvious reasons. But with that being said, everybody, Jordan 11s, I don't think it's the 11s. I don't think it's the 11s. It's not the 11s. I know it's not the 11s. I think it's the 12s. Regardless, though, that is going to wrap up the live show. I want to thank everyone so much for their donations, their generosity, their likes, their subscriptions, their support, as we broke down the latest regarding Shota Imanaga, Dylan Cease, and everyone in between. Again, Imanaga would certainly be a nice fit. Dylan Cease, I would absolutely love. Oh, my mouth is salivating at the thought of him. But again, I'm not going to get my hopes up. I'm going to stay as even-keeled as I can. I'm currently under the mindset that the Mets are going to sign a back-end rotation option in the free agent market on a one-year deal, and that's how they're going to round things out. So if David Stearns does things above that, it'll be more of a subtle surprise to me, and excitement level that'll be stronger than what it would have been if I had this expectation this whole time that, hey, we're going to go out and for certain trade for Dylan Cease. But if you watch on replay, let me know your biggest takeaway from today's show. What do you like about Dylan Cease, Shota Imanaga, and others? Maybe what you don't like. What do you think the Mets will do to round out their rotation for 2024? Let me know down below. And again, thank you all so much for being in here. I greatly appreciate Grant Papura. Thank you so much for being here. Jenny Metz, the absolute beauty. And I'll talk to you guys all again real soon. Let's go.